Vladimir Putin is proposing to freeze the Ukraine conflict along the current battle lines. But is this just another Russian trick, or are they finally serious about coming to the negotiating table? Plus, we're going to talk about the Secretary of Defense rolling out the blame for everybody but himself for leaking classified information, and a Russian agent in the White House press pool. It's more likely than you think. In fact, it's a certainty. I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about it. Okay, so this is actually from the FT, who initially broke this story, but Vladimir Putin has offered to halt Russia's invasion of Ukraine along the current front line, according to the Financial Times. This is, of course, as Donald Trump saying he's really close, guys. We're really close to a deal this time, for real. Now, bear in mind, we've been really close to a deal basically every single week for the past several months. And Trump is finally saying, if we don't get a deal, we're going to walk away. Well, the problem, as you may recall, that a walking away is giving Russia the ultimate deal, because Ukraine is only in a stalemate with Russia because of U.S. military support, at least through Vladimir Putin's assessment. So the FT, quoting, quote, people familiar with the matter, said Putin made the proposal meeting with Steve Witkoff, who, again, naively continues to show up despite Vladimir Putin reneging on almost every single agreement he's made, right? And, of course, walking back everything he has said. Now, it's worth noting, in return, the U.S. could give in to Russia's other major demands, like recognizing sovereignty officially of Russia over the Crimean Peninsula, and barring Ukraine from joining NATO, right? Now, basically, pretty please stop, we'll give you everything you want is not a great negotiating tactic. That's generally the negotiating tactic you rely on when you're about to be beaten. And so if you're Vladimir Putin, he's not an idiot. Vladimir Putin doesn't allow his enemies to live and fight another day. Look no further than how he treated Wagner head Yevgeny Prigozhin, right? And so this entire sort of line of reasoning is actually pretty nonsensical, right? And you can see that Vance is trying to spin this as a positive, saying that he expects some level of territorial concession from Russia and Ukraine in some kind of possible peace deal, right? Talking to journalists, he said, it's time for either Kiev or Moscow to either say yes or for the United States to walk away from this process. And again, if you're Vladimir Putin, I cannot understand any incentive to not drive the United States away, especially if you can extract from them major concessions. And that would be something that I think he would want to do, is get to this point where he gets recognition, official international recognition of some of his occupied territories, and then resume his invasion of Ukraine, right? Now, Zelensky has said we can't recognize Russian control of Crimea, but here's where things are even more complicated, right? The peace deal where this is supposed to happen. Remember, just yesterday, we talked about how the Russians came out and said, do not expect a peace deal anytime soon. And now the Ukrainians are saying, listen, the high-level peace talks we were supposed to have been downgraded. And a big reason is that European diplomats are skipping the event because of disagreements over key points, right? And what are those key points? Well, here's the thing. Is that one, you might recall, the U.S. is insisting on a full unconditional ceasefire, but Vladimir Putin has said, I can't do a ceasefire. Vladimir Putin has also said, I can't even sign an agreement with Zelensky because he's not the legitimate ruler of Ukraine. So to sit there and say that the things Vladimir Putin says, they are the cheapest things he has available, right? He will say literally anything, right? Remember, less than 24 hours ago, guys, or like 48 hours ago when you're watching this video, Putin promised an Easter ceasefire, but nothing happened at the front line. There was no decrease in combat operations by Russia. The Ukrainians literally released footage of Russian forces attacking Ukrainian positions during Putin's so-called ceasefire. At this point, either Putin does not control his military, in which case the U.S. is negotiating with the wrong entity, or Vladimir Putin is a liar looking to just stall things out. And frankly, why would you not lie if literally the U.S. just pretends, operates on this fantasy world where Vladimir Putin's, where the Easter truce was sincere? It's insane. It is preposterous, right? It is the naivete of the United States. Vladimir Putin must be in awe, right? So if I were him, right, what I would do is string the U.S. along, maybe even agree to some terms of their deal and say, but the first step of the deal is you recognizing Crimea and lifting sanctions. And then as soon as they do it, Vladimir Putin goes, oh, the Ukrainians violated a term. I actually couldn't make this deal with Zelensky. It's not legitimate. You guys promised me things that you never wrote down that no one has any evidence of, but you didn't deliver on the mysterious promises that I just made up. Now the war has to resume, and it's all your fault. This is a common Russian tactic, to pretend as though anything that happens is simply not Russia's fault, to treat Russia like a machine or like an animal, right? And to say, oh, well, technically that kid provoked the pit bull because he came near him with a stick. And it's like, at some point you go, no, dude, your dog is just dangerous, right? And Vladimir Putin sits there. That's what he's like. Russia's like the pit bull here, where Vladimir Putin just goes, oh, well, Russia had no choice but to invade Ukraine. We can't have NATO on our borders. And it's like, guys, Russia, you have NATO on your borders today. Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, all NATO members, all bordering Russia. And guess what's happened to Russia? Nothing. And they've been NATO members for 20 years. And in 20 years, not one NATO troop, not one bullet from NATO has entered Russian territory, right? In fact, Russia didn't even have that many forces on their borders with NATO. Seems kind of weird, right? And so this idea that Vladimir Putin is a sincere negotiator and he's being treated as such, despite a mountain of evidence, even if you pretend that the Obama years, that the Biden years, that the Bush years, that Trump won, if you pretend all of those eras never happened, even if you only take the agreements, the things Putin has said in the first 100 days of the Trump administration, you still have a massive track record of lies and nonsense. So here's the thing. The U.S. delegation is going to come in and they're going to say, Vladimir Putin agreed to everything and the whole moon, and we're going to give him everything he wants, and the Ukrainians are going to get nothing, and there'll be no guarantees, right? And they'll pretend and Vladimir Putin will pretend, maybe he'll even say, yeah, I totally agree to these. And he'll just keep the war going. It's insane. The naivete is just insane. And here's the other problem. One of the other issues with the peace deal is that you may know that European diplomats are involved. You may ask, well, why are the European diplomats involved? It's because the U.S. peace deal, part of the U.S.'s own agreements, is to say we will not have troops on the border with Ukraine. And what's worth noting is if you provide de jure recognition of the occupied territories, U.S. troops wouldn't be on the border with Ukraine. In fact, you might recall that having a buffer region between Russia and Ukraine, like Russia has gotten the buffer region. So why they're all worked up about this doesn't make any sense at baseline, right? And the U.S. has said, we're not going to put our troops in Ukraine, right? Trump is Mr. Peace, Mr. Bring the troops home. Well, that means that the guarantees of security are going to be provided by the Europeans. Now, this is problematic for a bunch of reasons, namely that the European militaries, even if they were to deploy their entire military to, let's say, 1-year rotations, it would still to provide even 10% of the Ukrainian armed forces size would require basically the complete deployment of the French, German, and UK militaries. Very tall order, and something that the Europeans would only do if, they had some reason to do so. And the problem is that you might recall the Trump administration, as one of their first acts, not only lectured the European governments about how they, not Russia, was the real enemy of freedom in Europe, and then proceeded to hit them with massive tariffs. So you can see how the Europeans might not respond great to the U.S. saying, I know just a few weeks ago I threatened to tariff you, or I did tariff you, and then I suspended them, and then I tariffed you again, but now I'm demanding you negotiate with me. But everyone else who's negotiated with me, I've hit them with additional tariffs after reaching a deal. But definitely, and I told you that you weren't actually a free country, and that your commitment to democracy didn't really exist, and that your lack of embrace of far right parties was a problem and a fundamental flaw in your democratic process. I know I said all of those things about you, but now I need your militaries to do a peacekeeping mission against an enemy who has credibly shown that they are going to reinitiate hostilities. And we're not going to back you up. And by the way, also, we made a bunch of statements saying that we probably weren't going to back you up unless you spent more money on defense. So good luck out there, guys. You can see why the Europeans are going to be like, shove it up your ass, right? And that's probably, I would bet anything that at least in private conversations between the UK, France, and Germany, one of them has said that the United States can go take their peacekeeping force and stick it where the sun doesn't shine. And you may be like, wow, seems like the United States really is not making any friends here. And that's true. That's true. So I don't know what to tell you guys. If you believe that this is a sincere move towards peace, if you believe this is real progress and not just more Trump administration bullshit, I got a cryptocurrency I'll sell you. Right? Maybe that's what I should do. Just launch a fucking crypto. Because at this point, that's the primary money-making mechanism of the administration. Remember, they have the official Trump coin. Remember that, right? From 400 years ago. That's a real legit investment vehicle. Now, before we talk about Pete Hegseth rolling out just pure copium, guys, really just this is not for amateurs. This is really military grade copium he's got here. And of course, our favorite Russian influencer getting into the White House. I wanted to mention that, if you are like me, right? I thought staying in shape when I was in the military on active duty, I thought that was hard. But in a way, it was kind of easy because I was a single guy. I woke up, I went to work, I got off after 12 hours, I went to the gym, and then I ate dinner, I showered, I went to bed, and I repeated the next day. In a way, it was easy. Now that I'm a dad, I'm a business owner, it's hard, right? But I still get it done. And what I've learned is that 99% of guys, they go, I'm too busy, I can't do it. And they throw up their hands and admit defeat. And just 1% of guys are like, you know what? Nah. They wake up early, they stay up late. They do what they have to do to get it done. And that's who I made Strike Gum for, right? I get it. The average guy, listen, get an energy drink. You go to the gas station. You drop your $5 on a Red Bull. Fine. Strike Gum is for the guys who are like, listen, I know a waste of time and money when I see it. Okay. This has 90 milligrams caffeine. That's as much as a Red Bull, as much as an Amp Energy, 0 sugar, 100 milligrams of alpha GPC. If you need the secret weapon to get it done, and I get it, dude. We all do. Okay. I have Strike Gum on my desk. I have a cup of coffee. Like, we do what we have to do to get it done. Okay. If that's you, strikegum.com. And don't rip yourself off. Remember, guys, I see the data. 50% of people that order chew one piece, order again. So go get, if you're going to get the 5-pack and you know you're going to get the 5-pack again, subscribe and save. Don't rip yourselves off. Get that 20% off. The link is in the description. And plus, I want to mention one other thing, guys. We are crushing it in our fundraiser with UAO. You guys know that we are helping out the Artan unit. This is basically the Ukrainian equivalent of the CIA Special Activities Division and a whole bunch of other units, right? Because an anonymous Dutch donor has said, you know what? If those Americans, if they raise $250,000 for the Ukrainians, I'll give them $250,000 myself. Well, guess what, lads? We are just a few $1,000s away. If everybody puts in just a couple of bucks, just like $5, the $5 you would have spent on that Red Bull, just put it in here. Help out the Artan unit. Give them and all of these guys the stuff they need to send the Russians packing. In fact, literally 2 days ago, the guys at Artan were sent to Zaporizhzhia because they had an intel that the Russians were going to be launching a large armored assault. And boy, they really let the Russians just walk into it. Dozens of FPV drones. Last I heard, I think like 5 to 7 tanks were taken out just by the Artan guys. And about 100 Russians KIA. So these guys only go where the work is hardest, and their track record speaks for itself. So the link to both of that is in the description. Okay. Let's talk about the Secretary of Defense. Now, you may recall that the Secretary of Defense leaked classified information, detailed operational plans down to the make of the bomb and the exact time of the strikes in a group chat with an Atlantic journalist who simply, as a courtesy, didn't leak it to anyone else knowingly. But if we on this channel know that America's enemies, they don't rest and they're not slacking. So there's a real good chance that this info still got out to the Iranians. Now, Pete Hegseth, of course, is instead of doing what an adult would do and saying, I should not have done that, I screwed up. Instead, he's not only doubling down, but saying that it's other people. It's everyone else who's the problem. He said it was a hoax press, whatever that means. Again, it was not a hoax. The Signal chat was completely real, and blamed his recently fired aides, who, by the way, guys, were his friends and colleagues of over a decade, saying that they're spinning lies about him and his turmoil engulfing the Pentagon, and said that everyone who was found leaking sensitive U.S. military plans would be referred to the Department of Justice for prosecution. Guys, not everyone, because we've all seen who is responsible for leaking classified military plans, and boy howdy, the DOJ is not touching that one. Right? He said, quote, when the evidence is gathered sufficiently, and this has all happened very quickly, it will be handed over to DOJ, and those people will be prosecuted if necessary. Right? If necessary is doing a lot of work here, right? And we don't think, based on what we understand, it's going to be a good day for a number of those individuals, because that was what was found, because of what was found in the investigation. This is really vague. But here's the thing. If you're going to prosecute them under UCMJ, this also sounds like undue command influence. And the leakers know who they are. And over time, the truth will be told. We stand firm behind that. Yeah, I would hope so, given that one of the leakers is on Fox and Friends. He's literally there. He's inside the Pentagon, guys. It's you. Now, they're trying to figure out who divulged operational plans for the Panama Canal, where will appear to have been no military operational plan for the Panama Canal, and who leaked a private briefing that Elon Musk was going to get over war preparations in China. As we talked about on this channel, the White House nixed it because Elon Musk has billions of dollars invested in China, huge factories there. And once China knows that Elon knows these war plans, China's going to shut down his factories essentially and seize them and demand that he disclose the war plans if he doesn't want them to get taken permanently offline. And of course, former Pentagon spokesman John Oliot, who we talked about yesterday for dropping an op-ed, basically saying that, yeah, Hegseth's Pentagon is a dumpster fire. He's like, Oliot in particular. He said, Oliot, he's a know-nothing. John knows why we let him go. Oliot left the Defense Department after being sidelined for playing a role in the removal of an official webpage celebrating Jackie Robinson. There is absolutely no fucking way that's true. A whole bunch of those dumb web pages were made. They were taken offline, probably because some fucking AI, somebody stuck in like the word like black or first African American or whatever, and it just tagged a bunch of pages and deleted them. Right. So it's just cope, man. It's all cope. And here's what I also want to point out. I love this. He says, quote, we should be talking about the decimation of the Houthis, who, by the way, guys, have shot down 3 MQ-9 Reaper drones over Yemen. So, still waiting on that. Still waiting on the Houthis to be gutted. How we're pushing back the Chinese. No, we're not. We just folded on their trade deal. And remember, the people we need to help us push back the Chinese in the Pacific, like Japan, we just slapped them with a shitload of tariffs. And now we have a new defense area on the southern border again. But worth noting that the U.S. military does not have the authority to do anything on the southern border related to law enforcement, interdiction, or border security. So it's unclear on what that's going to mean, other than providing sort of vague logistical support and extra camera watching. So where it's missing, though, is the Pentagon's strong stance against Russia, because we don't have one, because we're not treating Russia as an enemy. We're treating Russia as a friendly friendo we haven't made yet. Now, what I want to point out is that the secretary's statements align with something, and it's called DARVO. If you've ever seen, it's a kind of one of those therapy terms that it stands for deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. This is a manipulation tactic used by abusers to avoid accountability and shift blame, right? What they say is, I never did that thing. I never leaked it. You're the real leaker, right? And you've damaged my credibility, right? So I think we've actually all known people like this. If you have like an abusive boss, right? It's classic for the boss to go, I didn't forget about that assignment. You forgot about that deadline. And you damaged my career by not doing my work for me. You're the real bad guy here. Right? We've all heard that pure cope, and it's absolutely that, right? And it really is pretty effective, right? You may also be like, you know who else seems to be using that is old Vladimir Putin, where he goes, we didn't invade Ukraine. We didn't start the war. We were provoked into it by Ukraine. Ukraine was victimizing us, Russia. Think about all the ways in which Russia was wronged by the evil Ukrainians who inexplicably are able to dominate, coerce, and threaten innocent Russians, right? This is just a classic maneuver. And the problem is it seems to work. People really do buy it. If you deny that things ever happened, go on the attack, and then pretend that you're the victim and it's the perpetrator, right? It also creates a lot of confusion. And that's part of what I think the secretary is trying to do. He's trying to create confusion. And that way, when other people say, no, you're the real leaker, he goes, that's bullshit. I'm not the real leaker. You're the leaker. Who knows who's true? Who knows who's correct? Maybe everyone's a leaker, right? And then you go, no, only one of us has public group chats in which a journalist was added to the war plans. It's just absurd. But not as absurd, of course, as a Russian agent joining the White House press pool. Now, okay, here's what bothers me. This headline misses the most important part. It says MAGA influencer Tim Pool is actually now a part of the, White House press pool, right? Let's see if we can find it. Actually, this is not even the good story. Let's see if we can find it. Tim Pool, White House press corps. Boom, here we go. MAGA podcaster, baby. Again, I hate calling him MAGA podcaster. He's Tim Pool. He's his own shitbag. He doesn't, but he not only joined the White House press pool 4 weeks ago, but in fact is now a proud member, has actually attended briefings in the White House. Now, I actually think this is pretty funny for a bunch of reasons. The first of which is you may know, oh my God, please stop. I can't handle it. Right? God, I can't even listen to fucking Tim Pool. But first off, let's take a look at this man's outfit in the White House press room. You can see Tim Pool is so painfully insecure that he can't even handle his male pattern baldness. Guys, you know what? If it really bothers you that much, Timmy, just go to Turkey and get a hair transplant, right? But you can see here, he's wearing a fucking hoodie and a beanie in the White House press room. So truly one of the outfits of all time. No one's really worried about the dignity of the White House when Tim Pool's there, right? It's only a problem, apparently, if you're Zelensky. And the real kicker, though, is who Tim Pool is. Now, he claims, let's see, that actually, you might, okay, so if you follow this channel, you know that in 2023, I think, RT, that is the Russian state propaganda outlet, created a series of shell companies in which, between October 2023 and August 2024, they sent wire transfers to these shell companies totaling $10 million. And of course, create a bunch of fake invoices pretending to be buying iPhones. But in fact, what they were doing was funding an RT organization called Tenant Media, in which they offered right-wing influencers, particularly podcasters and Tim Pool among them, huge sums of money to parrot Russian talking points and to endorse their pro-Russian media outlet with appearances. Now, it is hard for me to understand, right, how these guys got tricked. Well, I understand how they got tricked. They didn't get tricked. They knew something was weird because they pretended to be a billionaire called Edward Gregorian, who doesn't exist, who has no email profile, has no profile at all, from a fake company saying, listen, Edward wants to hire his favorite influencers. And to the tune of an insane amount of money, right? They were hired. Someone, it's not clear who exactly is who, but the Tim Pool, an example of the kind of scale of the deal, would be 4 weekly videos hosted by Tim Pool, right, in exchange for $400,000 a month and $100,000 signing bonus, right? And that any content created under this agreement shall be property of the original company. Now, this is an insane amount of money. To give you an idea, an exclusive video, this is about 100, I'm going to say about 100 times what a really well done video would cost a sponsor. So if somebody, this is the equivalent of someone going to your work and saying, hey, average American, I want to hire you for $5 million a year to come push paper and answer emails at my company. You would just assume that there was something strange going on, right? So the fact that Tim Pool got this offer and was like, this seems fine, is insane. He knew that this was incredibly suspicious. And there's a reason the Russians wanted Tim Pool to parrot his talking points. It's because he already was doing it. And they wanted to make sure that they were transferring him money to continue to parrot Russian talking points, right? They didn't go. What's weird is that they didn't try to get any left-wing influencers. They didn't try to buy Sam Sater. They didn't try to buy Hassan Piker. They didn't even try to buy lame people like Destiny. They went after right-wing grifters like Tim Pool. And Tim Pool took that money. Tim Pool took the Russian money, even though he claims, the Justice Department has no actual proof to back its allegations. That's not true. They literally, right? Here, this is the indictment document. You can see the indictment document, guys. It is publicly available. So this idea that the Justice Department just got confused, wasn't sure. Wow, they made all this stuff up. They have names. Wow, look, here's the actual fake Edward Gregorian profile. Crazy, just also made up by the Department of Justice. They have timestamped emails, quotes, right? All of this is in the indictment, dozens and dozens and dozens of pages, right? Exact quotes. Just the idea that Tim Pool, one, if he can't discern what it means to have evidence, is insane. No actual proof. Yeah, okay, dude, sure. Yeah. Like, do you really trust this guy? You shouldn't. Because again, here's the other thing to remember, is that this was an instance in which Tim Pool was busted taking Russian money. Do the Russians seem like they just kind of try something once and then just kind of give up? Do they seem like they're not really that committed to influence operations? Or do you think that they said, yeah, we got busted for this time, Tim. Sorry. We're going to reach back, do it again. Do you think the Russians are going to try even harder now that Tim has a White House press pass? Do you think so? Do you think? Right? Again, once you have unwittingly acted as a foreign agent for a hostile power, you shouldn't be in the White House press corps. And God damn it, if you're going to do that, at least wear a fucking suit, Tim. Now, but don't worry, guys, don't worry. The White House is cracking down on some biased journalists like the AP. We're not going to let the Associated Press, right, the most respected and nonprofit journalism consortium in the world, they don't get to be in the White House. But old Russian stooge Tim Pool gets rolled in. And why? Because the AP refused to say Gulf of America in its style book after Trump decided that he was going to start calling the Gulf of Mexico Gulf of America, right? Unfortunately, believe it or not, guys, Donald Trump isn't God. He's not president of the world. And everybody gets to decide what the Gulf of Mexico is called. It's the Gulf of Mexico. I don't know what else. If you live in that delusional world where somebody can just change the name, no, it's always been the Gulf of America. Fucking goddamn. Right? Anyway, guys, that's all I had. Hit that subscribe button. That makes a difference. Bill Collier, Robin Colburn, Gars Martin, Eugenia Cuesta, Chris Gorsuch, Francis Karios, AL90, Pecha Toruru, and Jalen Gao. I could not do this without you guys. I appreciate y'all so much. Right? Check out your Strike Gum and donate to the fundraiser. I want to get that 500,000. I want to prove a point. Cheers. See ya.